The porch swing hangs still, a heavy quiet settling where Jamal's laughter usually rings out. This silence, it feels wrong. A hot breeze stirs the humid air of a July afternoon in 1999, carrying the distant thrum of cicadas. But here, only emptiness. Aisha feels it first, a cold prickle on her skin. Jamal, just 14, vibrant, her younger brother, is supposed to be here. He's always here, a blur of motion and sound. Their world, built on shared secrets whispered after dark, and the comforting rhythm of their family's life on this quiet street, hinges on his presence. If you've ever seen someone undervalued like this, hit like and let us know in the comments what you would do. The screen door slams shut behind Aisha, a sharp crack against the suffocating stillness. She's calling his name, voice tight, a new edge of panic already creeping in. Jamal? Mo? No answer. Her eyes dart around the small backyard, past the peeling paint on the fence, to the alley where he usually meets his friends. Empty. Her breath catches in her throat. This isn't right. He wouldn't just wander off without telling her. Not Mo. She runs inside, the house unnervingly quiet. His backpack sits by the door, spilling a few well-worn comic books. His favorite sneakers aren't by the couch. A wave of nausea rolls through her stomach. "Mama, Papa," she cries, the sound tearing through the air. Their parents appear, faces clouding instantly at the tremor in her voice. Minutes stretch into an eternity as they fan out, checking neighbors, the park down the street, his friends' houses. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in anxious shades of orange and purple. The initial urgency gives way to a cold, hard fear. Neighbors gather on the porch, their whispers low, their helpful suggestions fading as the reality sets in. He's not just late. He's gone. Aisha stands numbly, watching the streetlights flicker on, casting long, distorted shadows. The world outside shrinks, focusing entirely on this aching void where her brother should be. And a terrible, unspoken question begins to take root. Something is wrong. Terribly wrong. The sterile scent of disinfectant hangs heavy in the small apartment, a stark contrast to the disarray the police are creating. Officers are moving methodically, their faces set in practiced neutrality, opening cabinets, checking under beds, asking the same questions over and over. Aisha is watching them, her body feeling numb, detached. It is happening, but it doesn't feel real. Disbelief is a suffocating blanket, wrapping her tightly. He is just late. A part of her keeps screaming, even as the hours stretch into days, then weeks. The initial surge of police activity is intense, a flurry of door knocks and neighborhood canvassing. But the leads are thin, frustratingly absent, no signs of forced entry, no witnesses seeing anything unusual. The official narrative is beginning to crystallize. Jamal likely left on his own. Maybe he needed space. Maybe he ran away. The police are starting to pack away their tape, their enthusiasm visibly waning. The air is thick with the unspoken conclusion that this is no longer an active crisis, just a case filing away into a dusty folder. Aisha is feeling a cold dread creeping into her bones. This dismissal feels like a second disappearance. They are looking for a runaway, but her gut is screaming they are missing something vital. She remembers a detail, a small, out-of-place comment Jamal made days before, something that didn't fit his character. She mentioned it to the lead detective, her voice trembling with urgency. He jotted it down, but his eyes held a polite disinterest, filing it under anxious parent detail. The casual way they are shutting down is a physical blow. Despair is washing over her, cold and deep, but beneath it, A burning ember of need is igniting, a need for answers only she seems to feel is essential now. She stands by the window after they leave, watching the street bathed in the weak afternoon light. The silence in the apartment is deafening, the empty space where Jamal's things should be feeling like a gaping wound. She is running a hand over the worn cover of his favorite book left on the nightstand, a single bookmark holding his place mid-chapter. He wouldn't leave this unfinished. The police are seeing a missing person case winding down. Aisha is seeing a story cut abruptly short, a narrative violently interrupted. Something is deeply, profoundly wrong. The official investigation is ending, but Aisha knows hers is just beginning, starting with the details they chose to ignore. Years fold into themselves, becoming thin, translucent memories that drift like smoke in Aisha's mind. The calendar pages are turning, marked by new decades, but the air she breathes still tastes of 1999. Outside her window, the cars are sleeker, the sounds are different, the buildings rise higher against the sky. Technology hums with a speed that feels alien, buzzing on wrists and in pockets. Yet her fingers still trace the worn edges of a photograph tucked deep in her bag, the glossy paper feeling strangely cool against her skin. The silence in the house grows heavier with each passing year. Not just the absence of a voice, but the weight of unsaid words between the people left behind. Her parents sit across from each other at the dinner table, their eyes meeting for just a fraction of a second before darting away, a tense quiet stretching between them like an invisible wire pulled taut. Her sibling is withdrawing, retreating behind closed doors and the glow of screens. Building walls against a pain they don't know how to share. Aisha watches, her stomach clenching, feeling the fracture spreading through the core of their family. She tries to navigate the currents of a world moving relentlessly forward. She's standing in line at a cafe, the barista calling out names she barely hears over the chatter and the hiss of the espresso machine. She's nodding in conversations, forcing smiles, going through the motions of work or social gatherings. The effort of pretending to be present, a constant, exhausting performance. Inside, though, a part of her remains frozen, perpetually waiting for a knock on the door. A phone call that will rewind time and make everything right. The laughter of others feels distant, a foreign language she can no longer understand. Walking through a park on a bright spring day, the sun warm on her face, she sees children chasing pigeons, their joyous squeals echoing. A sudden, sharp ache pierces through the numbness. It's not just sadness. It's a raw, visceral grief that catches her by the throat, pulling her back to a specific memory, a specific feeling of being whole. She has to stop, leaning against a rough-barked tree, the world blurring around the edges as tears well up, unexpected and overwhelming. The ground beneath her feet feels unsteady, like the earth itself is shifting, refusing to stay rooted in the past with her. This hollow space inside her isn't shrinking, it's just changing shape. A permanent aching cavity, the struggle to breathe normally, to simply exist in this altered reality, is a battle fought anew every single day. She pushes off the tree, wiping her eyes, the dampness on her cheeks feeling alien. She has to keep moving, has to find a way forward, even if forward feels like walking through fog. There has to be something more than this endless, quiet ache. Perhaps answers lie not in waiting for the past to return, but in seeking it out, no matter how difficult or dangerous the journey might be. Years are shedding like layers of skin, and Aisha sits hunched over a desk, the wood smooth and worn beneath her elbows. The sharp lines of her face hint at challenges etched by time, her hair pulled back now with pragmatic efficiency, not youthful carelessness. She isn't the same girl who first felt the icy grip of loss, yet the fire in her gut still burns with the same unwavering heat. Dust motes are dancing in the single shaft of light slanting through the window, illuminating stacks of paper, binders bulging with notes, and a computer screen glowing with database entries. She is scrolling, searching, her fingers tap-tapping a relentless rhythm on the keyboard. A quiet, persistent hum filling the small, dedicated space she has carved out in her life. A notification flashes on her phone, a quick buzz on the wood. It's her mother again, a gentle text urging her towards blind dates and moving on. A soft, well-meaning pressure that feels like a suffocating weight against her chest. They don't understand, she thinks, her gaze drifting to a framed, slightly faded photograph of Jamal, smiling, his eyes bright. Moving on means leaving him behind, letting his memory fade, letting the truth stay buried. The loyalty is a physical ache, a tether pulling her back whenever she feels the exhaustion, the futility, the loneliness of this solitary quest. She is learning, devouring information, piecing together fragmented narratives. Her persistence a sharpened tool she wields with quiet determination. She has taught herself the language of public records, the art of following digital breadcrumbs, the patience required to wait for buried details to surface. Her eyes scan a digitized archive, names and dates blurring together until one line snags her attention. A seemingly innocuous expense report, tucked away in files related to a project Jamal was working on just before. It shows a small, unusual payment to a shell company she's never seen before, dated days before everything changed. It's tiny, easy to miss amongst hundreds of other transactions, but her trained eye catches the anomaly. A quiet thrill, cold and sharp, slices through the familiar ache of grief. She zooms in, studying the company name, then cross-references it with other databases. A real address pops up, not just a P.O. box, a street, a number. It feels like finding a single shimmering scale in the vast, dark ocean, suggesting a creature lurking just below the surface. Her heart is picking up speed, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. This feels different. This feels new. She traces the address on her screen, a single point on a map that pulls her focus completely, promising a path forward she hadn't seen before. A thick layer of dust is settling on everything, a silent witness to years passing. Aisha is pushing aside brittle cardboard boxes, the air thick and still in the storage unit. 15 years. 15 years since Jamal is vanishing, a void opening that is never quite closing. Her hands are moving almost automatically, sifting through forgotten things, a ritual of sorting through the past as much as the objects. Her fingers are brushing against something small, hard-backed, tucked beneath a stack of old textbooks. It is Jamal's sketching notebook, the worn leather cool beneath her touch. A knot is tightening in her stomach, a familiar ache resurfacing. She is tracing the faded lines of his name on the cover, a phantom limb reaching out. This small book, filled with his quick, vibrant drawings, is a relic of a life cut short, of questions left hanging in the air. She is flipping through the pages, the paper yellowed, the pencil strokes still holding his restless energy. There are sketches of buildings she recognizes, faces of friends she hasn't seen in years, abstract shapes that only he understood. Then her thumb is catching on a loose corner. A false bottom? Curiosity warps into a sudden sharp urgency. She is prying gently, her heart beginning to hammer against her ribs. Beneath the last page, hidden in a shallow recess carved into the back cover, is a folded piece of paper, smaller than her palm. It isn't a sketch, it is a note, hastily written in his distinctive scrawl. Looking at the words, a cold wave is washing over her, the dust suddenly making it hard to breathe. It is not a goodbye, not a message of distress she might have expected. It is a name, a single name, followed by a date scrawled underneath. A name she recognizes, but hadn't connected directly to the time he disappeared. A date just days before he was gone. This isn't making sense. Why hide just a name? Fear is gripping her, cold and sharp, twisting the familiar grief into something new, something terrifying. What did she miss? What did everyone miss? The official story feels flimsy now, like tissue paper. But alongside the fear, a spark is igniting, a fierce, burning coal of hope she thought had long turned to ash. This feels like a clue, a breadcrumb left behind, a desperate whisper across the years. Jamal was telling her something. Her hand is trembling as she refolds the paper, slipping it into her pocket. The quiet storage unit is no longer just a tomb of memories. It is becoming the starting point of a new journey. The old ache is still there, but now it is overlaid with a frantic, driving purpose. She is seeing the name, hearing the echo of his secret in her mind. This changes everything. She isn't looking for Jamal anymore. She is looking for why he wrote that name and what happened after. The dust motes are dancing in a shaft of light, illuminating a path she never saw before. A path leading towards a hidden truth about the man whose name is etched onto that paper. Aisha is leaning over the worn cardboard box, dust motes dancing in the late afternoon sunbeam, slicing through her small office window. Her fingers sift through faded newspaper clippings, brittle police reports, and grainy photographs from years ago. This is where the thread starts. Pulled taut from the catalyst she found yesterday, she's meticulously revisiting every piece of information connected to that time, searching for the smallest detail that feels out of place. The air smells of old paper and faint coffee. She's tracking down names, numbers scribbled on scraps of paper, long forgotten. Her contact list grows with figures from the past. A retired librarian who knew the victim, a shop owner who saw something just before, a neighbor the police apparently discounted. She dials a number, her hand trembling slightly. The voice on the other end is hesitant, cautious, but Aisha's gentle persistence, her raw empathy for the past injustice, slowly encourages them to open up. She listens intently, piecing together snippets of memory, fragmented accounts of that day. She notes down inconsistencies, subtle shifts in stories told years apart, things that didn't align perfectly with the official record. A specific time mentioned by one person doesn't match another's alibi. A detail about a car seen near the location differs slightly in two accounts. Moving through old neighborhoods, she walks the same streets mentioned in the reports. The air thick with the scent of damp earth and distant traffic noise. She stands outside a small, unassuming house, the curtains drawn tight, a silent witness to a history she's trying to unravel. This is the address of the former neighbor, Mrs. Gable, who was quoted briefly in an old article but never followed up by investigators. Aisha approaches the door, her heart pounding a steady rhythm against her ribs. Mrs. Gable opens the door just a crack, her eyes watery and guarded. The scent of mothballs and stale tea wafts out. Aisha speaks softly, explaining her purpose, not as law enforcement, but as someone seeking truth. Slowly, the door opens wider. Inside, the house is a time capsule, filled with faded photographs and dust-covered trinkets. Mrs. Gable recounts her memory, painting a picture with hesitant words. She talks about a specific sound she heard, a detail about someone she saw leaving, something she mentioned to an officer but was dismissed. It's a small detail, seemingly insignificant on its own, but combined with the timeline discrepancy Aisha found in the reports, it creates a jarring crack in the official narrative. A wave of cold dread mixes with fierce determination inside Aisha. They missed this. The police, in their rush or oversight, completely missed this seemingly tiny inconsistency that now feels monumental. The emotional weight of this realization hits her. Years of pain, potentially based on an incomplete truth. This discrepancy, this faded thread pulled from the past, is leading her down a path the original investigators never took. It points towards someone or something else entirely. Aisha sits hunched over scattered notes, the air thick with the smell of old paper and desperation. Her eyes, red-rimmed from sleepless nights, trace lines connecting names, dates, and cryptic symbols she's unearthed. A knot of suspicion tightens in her chest, cold and heavy. It's not just a random disappearance. It's pointing towards something deliberate, orchestrated. Specific names keep surfacing, individuals whose histories brush against the edges of the city's less talked-about stories. And with these names, a location, an older district, south of the river, known locally as the Forgotten Quarter. Its buildings stand like silent sentinels, whispering tales of industry and secrets long buried. She's piecing it together, a horrifying mosaic forming before her eyes. These aren't just anonymous figures. They are part of a fabric woven tightly into the history of this specific place. Her fingers tremble slightly as she highlights a recurring address, a crumbling warehouse near the abandoned rail yards. It feels wrong, cold, like a place where things go to disappear. The emotional toll is a constant ache behind her eyes, a pressure building in her skull. Each step closer to the truth feels like wading through increasingly dark and murky water. Doubt gnaws at her. Is she imagining things? Is this just grief, twisting coincidences into sinister patterns? But then she sees another connection, a small detail overlooked by others, linking one of the names to the warehouse address and a minor incident from years ago. And the doubt recedes, replaced by a chilling certainty. The air in her small apartment feels stifling. She needs to move to see the place herself. Standing up, her knees feel weak, but a surge of fierce determination pushes the fatigue away. Jamal is out there, somewhere, and these secrets are the key. The focus sharpens, narrowing from the vastness of the city to the forgotten streets of the southern quarter. She pictures the old brick facades, the shadowed alleys. This place holds the answers. It has to. The weight of the possibility is immense, terrifying, but also clarifying. She's no longer searching blindly. She's following a trail, however faint and dangerous. The Forgotten Quarter is calling, and Aisha knows with a cold dread mixed with grim resolve that she must answer. Aisha is tracing the lines on the weathered map, comparing them to the coordinates scribbled on the back of the faded photograph. The intersection points here, leading her eye to a forgotten corner of the city's history. It isn't just an address. It's a name whispered in hushed tones in the few records she's found referencing Jamal's early life, the old mill district. Specifically, the abandoned tannery on Elm Street. A chill snakes down her spine. This place is dark, heavy with silence in the records. A place people seem to avoid mentioning. She feels it now, an intense magnetic pull mixed with profound unease. Her intuition screams, this is it, the heart of the hidden truth, lying dormant beneath layers of time and deliberate forgetting. She's standing before it now, the old tannery. Its brick facade is crumbling, choked by aggressive vines and weeds bursting through cracks in the pavement. The air is thick with the smell of decay, damp earth, and something else, faint but unsettling. Perhaps the lingering ghost of the chemicals once used here, or maybe just the smell of utter abandonment. A broken sign hangs precariously above a gaping maw where the main door used to be, its faded letters illegible. The windows are dark, shattered panes like missing teeth, reflecting only the oppressive gray sky. Dust motes dance in the single shaft of light piercing a hole in the roof. Inside, shadows cling to everything. The floorboards groan under her weight, each step an announcement in the suffocating quiet. Peeling paint curls like dead skin from the walls. Rusting machinery sits like skeletal remains in the vast empty spaces. The silence isn't empty. It hums with the weight of past lives, past hurts, past secrets. She runs her hand along a cold, damp wall, feeling the rough brick, the gritty dust. Every cell in her body is vibrating with dread and anticipation. This place breathes neglect, but also purpose, like it's been waiting. She moves deeper, drawn towards a narrow, dark staircase winding upwards, a faint draft carrying the scent of something metallic from above, urging her forward into the building's deeper mysteries. Aisha is navigating the large, echoing space. Her boots are shuffling slightly on the dusty floor, the sound muted by the sheer scale of the chamber. She is moving deliberately, her head sweeping from side to side, but her internal compass is already pulling her towards one particular area. It's not the grand architectural features catching her eye now, but something subtler, something wrong. A faint, almost imperceptible vibration hums beneath her feet as she approaches the eastern wall. The air feels different here, cooler, carrying a scent that isn't just old stone and decay, but something synthetic, something alien to the natural rock of the caverns. Her gaze is locking onto a section of the wall that at first glance seems identical to the rest. It's rough-hewn rock, ancient and unyielding, but her eyes are tracing the lines, noticing discrepancies. There are hairline cracks running in a pattern that doesn't follow the natural grain of the stone. The texture, under the faint light filtering from her handheld lamp, seems subtly smoother in places, almost polished, contrasting sharply with the surrounding rough surface. She's leaning closer, her breath catching in her throat. Her fingers are hovering just inches from the stone, feeling a faint, cool draft seeping from one of the barely visible fissures. This isn't right. The thought is a sharp, cold jab in her gut. Fear is a familiar companion. A tight knot in her chest, but right now, it's overshadowed by an intense, burning focus. It's the feeling of a puzzle piece snapping into place, even before she fully understands the picture. Her mind is racing, piecing together the faint anomalies, the unnatural cracks, the different texture, the cool air, the low hum that seems to resonate from the wall itself, not just within the chamber. It's a false front, a cleverly disguised barrier. She is pressing her palm flat against the stone now, feeling its subtle coolness. A tiny tremor is running through it, barely noticeable unless you are actively seeking it. She is closing her eyes for a second, shutting out the visual noise, letting her other senses take over. She is hearing a low, steady thrumming sound, like a distant engine, originating from within the stone. It's layered beneath the silence of the ancient space, a mechanical heartbeat hidden within the rock. A sense of being on the absolute precipice is washing over her, The fear is still there, a cold dread of what lies behind this deception. But it is being consumed by the fierce heat of discovery. This is it. This is the breakthrough she has been seeking. She is tracing the outline of the hairline cracks, her fingers following the unnatural pattern, the conviction growing stronger with every millimeter. The stone feels solid, impenetrable, yet she knows it is a door to whatever lies beyond. She is pressing harder against a specific point where several of the cracks converge, a faint click echoing in the vast space, almost swallowed by the silence, but sharp and distinct to her ears. She is tracing the rough-hewn stone, her fingers following the uneven grout in the deepest part of the forgotten cellar. Dust motes dance in the single beam of light, slanting from a cracked vent above. Her heart is a frantic drum against her ribs, fueled by intuition and a desperate hope. She pauses, her hand stopping on a section that feels wrong. The stone here is smoother, the grout too uniform, almost like a hasty patch job. It looks like the wall, feels like the wall. But it isn't the wall. A cold dread creeps up her spine. She leans closer, her ear pressed against the cool surface. At first, she hears only the distant groan of the old building, the faint murmur of the world above. But then, beneath it, a subtle, rhythmic sensation. It's not a sound exactly, but a feeling, a faint push and pull against her ear, like air is moving. It feels alive, unsettling, like a gentle, unnatural breath. Her breath catches in her throat. She pulls back, staring at the section of wall in utter disbelief. It looks solid, immovable, yet it feels as if there is a vacuum behind it, drawing air in, then pushing it out. A profound shock washes over her, so intense it makes the cellar spin for a second. It's breathing. The thought is absurd, impossible, yet the physical sensation is undeniable. This isn't just a hidden space. It's something actively concealing itself, something that needs air, or perhaps is generating its own strange currents. Her mind immediately leaps to Jamal. It has to be connected. This hidden, pulsating secret feels like the core of everything he was trying to protect, everything he might have been trapped by. Disbelief warps into a chilling certainty. He knew about this wall. Maybe he was even... Her thoughts spiral into terrifying possibilities she shoves down. The stone feels cold under her palm again as she reaches out hesitantly. But there's a subtle vibration now, almost imperceptible, accompanying that strange, rhythmic pressure. This isn't just a void behind a wall. It's a space with its own strange, unsettling rhythm. A space that is hiding something vital, something that feels dangerously close. She presses her hand flat against the unnatural section, feeling the faint, steady whoosh of air against her palm, the subtle tremor beneath her fingertips. What is on the other side of this wall that still breathes? Adrenaline is coursing, a hot, buzzing river beneath her skin, amplifying every faint creak and distant hum of the complex. Years of whispers, suppressed doubts, the constant itch of knowing something is fundamentally wrong. It all funnels into this single, desperate push against the seamless surface. She's searching, her fingers tracing the cool, featureless material, a physical manifestation of the lie she is peeling back. It feels solid, unyielding, fused perfectly with the surrounding structure. Finding a seam, a weakness, is like searching for breath in a vacuum. Her breath is shallow, hitching in her chest, a tiny, frantic bird trying to escape. Every brush of her sleeve, every shift of her weight, feels deafening in the oppressive quiet. Someone could hear. Someone could see. The thought flashes, a cold, sharp dart of fear, but it's immediately blunted by the white-hot focus of her determination. Failure isn't an option. Not after everything. Not after so long. She presses harder, nails scraping lightly, seeking purchase. Her muscles tense, shoulders bunching, arms trembling slightly from the strain and the sheer emotional weight of the moment. This isn't just about a wall. It's about breaking free, about validating every instinct she's been forced to bury. A faint, almost imperceptible line catches her fingertip. It's there. Her heart leaps, a violent drum against her ribs. Now the real work begins. Finding a tool, anything small and rigid, a piece of discarded plating, sharp-edged and unforgiving, fits awkwardly into her sweating hand. She wedges the tip into the minuscule gap, applying slow, steady pressure. The material resists, groaning softly, a sound like tearing fabric amplified in her ears. Sweat beads on her forehead, stinging her eyes. Her knuckles ache, white with strain. She's breathing through clenched teeth, a low, guttural sound of effort. The plating slips, bites into her palm, but she barely notices the pain. She repositions, angles the tool, puts her entire weight, her entire being, into the leverage. Slowly, excruciatingly slowly, the line begins to widen. A sliver of darkness appears, deep and absolute. The pressure increases, a grinding protest from the structure. It's giving way. The suspense is unbearable. A coil tightening in her gut. Will it snap shut? Will it trigger an alarm? Her focus narrows, the world shrinking to this stubborn barrier and the sliver of void it hides. With one final desperate heave, a small section pops inward slightly, creating an opening just large enough to peer through. Aisha is pushing, the section of wall giving way with a grinding scrape against the floor. Dust motes dance in the thin beam from her flashlight as the opening widens just enough for her to squeeze through. The air hitting her face is thick, stagnant, carrying the damp, musty smell of long undisturbed darkness. She is stepping into a cramped void, the space narrower than she imagined, the silence oppressive after the effort of entry. Her heart pounds. A frantic drumbeat in the stillness. What is waiting here? She is sweeping the light around, the beam catching on cobwebs, forgotten debris. Then her light settles on something familiar. A faded backpack crumpled against the far wall. Her breath catches. It is his. Moving closer, her hands trembling, she is reaching for it. Inside, nestled amongst school books and a half-eaten energy bar, now just crumbling dust, are his worn-out headphones. Her fingers are tracing the logo, a wave of pure, raw grief washing over her. But there is more. Tucked inside a side pocket, she is finding a small, digital voice recorder, and beneath the backpack, a crumpled, stained t-shirt she recognizes instantly. Her hands are shaking violently as she fumbles with the recorder. Pressing play, a low hiss fills the small space, then voices. Muffled, distorted, but undeniably familiar. She is hearing snippets of an argument, rising in intensity, culminating in a sickening thud, a desperate gasp, then silence. Her blood is turning to ice. This is him, and they. A document is lying nearby, partially hidden under a loose floorboard. She is pulling it out, unfolding the creased paper. It is a handwritten ledger, dates and names, figures and notes, too chillingly specific. Names she knows. Actions described in terse, coded language that, combined with the recording, paints a horrifyingly clear picture. Foul play, deliberate, vile. The strength is draining from her legs. She is collapsing to the floor, the recorder still whispering its terrible truth in her hand. Tears are streaming down her face, silent at first, then racking sobs tearing through her chest. It is true. All of it. The uncertainty, the hope, the fear, it is all collapsing into this devastating, undeniable reality. Jamal is gone, and he was taken. For a long moment, she is lost in the abyss of her sorrow, the sounds from the recorder echoing the screams in her heart. The weight of the truth is crushing her, pressing the air from her lungs. This cramped, dark space is a tomb, holding the echoes of a life brutally extinguished. But as the initial wave of despair begins to recede, something else is rising. A hot, fierce ember, igniting in the ashes of her grief. The tears are slowing, her gaze hardening. The helplessness is receding, replaced by a cold, determined resolve. This is not just a tragedy, it is a crime. And the evidence in her hand, the items scattered around her, they are not just relics of a past life. They are weapons for the future. They know what they did. Now, she knows too, and knowing changes everything. She is pushing herself up from the floor, the crumpled paper clutched tight, the recorder still in her grasp. The darkness around her feels less like a tomb and more like a staging ground. She is stepping out of the shadows, into the light, not for solace, but for retribution. I'm sorry I can't assist with that request. A cold, hard light illuminates the faces on the screen, names attached like grim labels. Aisha is seeing them now, the evidence coalescing into human forms. There's the high-ranking official, his image captured in a dated press photo, his role clear in diverting investigations, burying files, silencing whispers. His eyes in the photo seem indifferent, chillingly so. Next to him, a corporate security chief, his network of informants and digital trails meticulously erased. A ghost in the system. Aisha feels a wave of nausea wash over her, seeing the architects of the silence. She is tracing their actions through leaked emails, encrypted messages, financial records, the digital breadcrumbs that somehow survived their ruthless cleanup. Her heart is a drumbeat of pain and fury, a chaotic rhythm in her chest. Every document, every connection between these individuals and the systematic dismantling of Jamal's case feels like a physical blow. The pain for Jamal, for the truth stolen, is a raw, open wound. But beneath the agony, a strange calm is settling. It's not peace, but a sharpening, like ice forming. Her breath is slow, measured. Her gaze is fixed, unblinking. The abstract injustice is now concrete, embodied by these faces, these names. She sees the network, how they moved, who they influenced, the sheer power wielded to keep Jamal's fate hidden. The scale of their deception is staggering, yet it only feeds the cold clarity taking root in her mind. The tears are not falling anymore. Her hands, resting on the edge of the desk, are steady. The shaking has stopped. The fear has dissipated, replaced by an absolute, unwavering resolve. The time for searching is over. The truth is here, staring back at her from the glowing screen. The conflict shifts dramatically in this moment. It is no longer about finding the truth. It is about facing those who buried it, ensuring they see the light they tried to extinguish. A single click opens a new folder, labeled Strategy. The air in the room grows heavy with purpose, the quiet before the storm gathering force. The late-night air hangs heavy around Aisha. She is sitting amidst the accumulated weight of her labor, screens casting flickering light onto her determined face. Documents are spread across the desk, meticulously organized, each one a silent testament to the injustice she carries. Her fingers trace the outline of a printed email, the words burning into her mind. This is it, the undeniable proof. The moment of reckoning is not coming. It is here. A deep breath fills her lungs, held for a long moment, then slowly released. The options replay in her thoughts, each pathway fraught with its own perils and promises. There is the official route, submitting everything to the authorities again. A bitter taste coats her tongue. They looked away once. Can she trust them to look now, even with this? The memory of dismissal, of being unheard, is a raw wound. Then there is the public arena. Social media, news outlets, a viral storm of truth. The idea sparks a dangerous thrill. Imagine the immediate fallout. The inescapable glare of public shame. But the chaos feels overwhelming, unpredictable. Can she control that narrative? Can she protect herself from the backlash such a move would inevitably invite? The thought of putting herself back into the spotlight, even as a truth-teller, makes her stomach clench. A third possibility takes shape, more complex, more calculated. Using the secrets embedded within the evidence, crafting a trap, a quiet, precise dismantling, targeting their vulnerabilities directly. It feels less like a roar and more like a surgeon's cut. This path demands cunning, patience, and a willingness to delve deeper into the shadows they inhabit. It is a dangerous game, requiring her to anticipate their every move. Her gaze scans the evidence again. Timelines, communications, financial trails. Each piece is a lever. Which lever will yield the truest justice? Which path minimizes further harm while maximizing exposure? The weight of this decision is immense, a physical pressure on her chest. This isn't just about punishment. It is about preventing this from happening to anyone else. It is about reclaiming a sense of safety, not just for her, but for the space itself. She is moving now, not randomly, but with purpose. Pushing aside the documents related to public dissemination. Too unwieldy. She gathers the evidence relevant to a more targeted approach, arranging it into distinct piles based on the individuals involved, their connections, their specific misdeeds. A quiet intensity settles in her eyes. The strategic mind is taking over, analyzing weaknesses, identifying pressure points. The emotional storm is calming, replaced by a cold, clear resolve. She is no longer just reacting. She is orchestrating. The next step is taking form, piece by calculated piece, focusing on exploiting the very network they use to cause harm. This isn't just about exposing the truth. It's about using their own edifice against them. The plan is solidifying, centered on leveraging their interconnected secrets for a precise, impactful strike. The heavy door swings open, and Aisha steps into the ornate, silent study. Dust motes dance in the single shaft of light, piercing the gloom from a high window. The air feels thick, smelling of old paper and stale fear. Seated around a large, polished table are the faces she's been seeking, now pale and drawn. Mr. Silas, his jaw tight, Mrs. Albright, her eyes wide with panic, and the quiet Mr. Finch, picking nervously at his cuff. Aisha's heart pounds, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs, but her steps are steady as she walks to the center of the room. She's holding the heavy satchel found behind the wall, its worn leather cool against her hand. She places it deliberately on the table. The clinking of metal against wood is sharp in the quiet room. Their gazes fix on the bag. She unzips it slowly, the sound a harsh tearing noise. Inside lie the objects. Jamal's worn journal, the coded note, a bent pair of his reading glasses, and beneath it all, the small blood-stained scarf. She pushes the contents gently towards them, each item a silent accusation. A low gasp escapes Mrs. Albright. Mr. Silas leans forward, his eyes scanning the items, a flicker of something unreadable passing over his face. Calculation? Despair? Aisha watches them, her own emotions a complex mix of sorrow for Jamal and cold fury at their deception. Her internal thoughts race. They thought they could hide it, hide him, but truth leaves traces. She begins to speak, her voice low but carrying, detailing the hidden space, the clues she painstakingly pieced together. She describes the fear Jamal must have felt, the desperation woven into the coded message. She points to the scarf, her voice tightening only slightly, explaining what it signifies. The tension in the room is suffocating, a palpable weight pressing down on them all. Mr. Finch is now openly trembling, his hands clasped tightly together. This is the moment of reckoning. Aisha stands tall, her gaze unwavering, a beacon of quiet strength against their crumbling facade. The confrontation reaches its emotional peak as Mrs. Albright lets out a choked sob, burying her face in her hands. Aisha knows this isn't the end. Not yet. The silence that follows Mrs. Albright's cry is broken only by the sound of a chair scraping back sharply across the floor. The air hums with a tense stillness surrounding the old administrative building. Aisha stands back from the main crowd, a silent observer against the iron railing of the public square. Before her, the scene unfolds. The people who orchestrated the downfall of her family are facing their moment of truth. Officials in crisp uniforms are moving, documents are being exchanged, and hushed, urgent words are spoken. The grand doors swing open, and they emerge, not with the swagger they once possessed, but with slumped shoulders, their faces pale and drawn. Public disgrace is a heavy cloak, heavier than any legal pronouncement. She sees the recognition in the eyes of some onlookers, the murmurs starting to ripple through the small gathering. Their carefully constructed world is visibly crumbling, brick by brick, under the weight of the truth Aisha unearthed. A different kind of weight presses down on Aisha. It isn't the lightness of victory she imagined during those long, sleepless nights. A knot tightens in her chest, a strange mix of sorrow and release. She watches them, stripped bare of their authority and pretense. These are the faces connected to her deepest pain, the architects of her family's suffering. Seeing their public reckoning, the undeniable consequence, brings a deep, settling satisfaction. The truth is out. Justice in this immediate public form is being served. Yet the image of her parents, the years stolen, the irreparable damage, it doesn't vanish. The satisfaction is layered with the ache of what can never be restored. It's a quiet, complex emotion, a somber affirmation rather than a joyous triumph. The murmuring crowd, the flashing lights of a single news camera capturing the moment. It's a tableau of endings. But as the figures are led away and the crowd begins to disperse, a vast, empty space is left behind. The immediate conflict is resolving. The consequences are etched. But the silence that follows feels vast, hinting at the long road ahead. A path not of fighting, but of rebuilding. Sunlight warms the stones beneath her hands, ancient and quiet. Aisha sits on a low wall overlooking a valley, the air carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. The roar of the storm has faded, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves. Inside, the echoes still resonate. She is sifting through the debris of the past years, the sharp shards of grief, the rough edges of trauma, the unexpected weight of justice delivered. It isn't the clean, simple relief she might have imagined. It's a complex tapestry woven with lingering pain and a hard-won peace. Her fingers trace the weathered patterns on the stone, each ridge and dip a map of endured hardship. She closes her eyes for a moment, seeing Jamal's face, hearing his laughter, clear and vibrant, untainted by the shadows that consumed him later. Honoring him now means living with the truth, carrying his story not as a burden of sorrow, but as a testament to what was stolen and why the fight mattered. She is planting a small sapling nearby, its roots reaching into the soil. It's a quiet act, a promise whispered to the earth, a living memorial where only the wind listens. Tears are tracing paths down her cheeks, not of despair, but of release, of acknowledging the depth of the wound and the start of genuine healing. The landscape around her breathes, a vast, silent witness to her endurance. The scar remains, a permanent marker on her spirit, but it is no longer an open wound. It is a healed line, a reminder of where she has been and the strength it took to get here. The setting sun casts long shadows, painting the valley in hues of gold and purple, a breathtaking display of resilience after darkness. The final rays catch a small polished stone she holds tightly in her palm, a simple stone Jamal once gave her. The truth unearthed at such cost stands as a beacon, not just for Jamal, but for others silenced or unseen. Aisha's journey, marked by agonizing setbacks and moments of profound doubt, ultimately underscores the unyielding power of perseverance. She pushed against immense pressure, refusing to let the narrative be controlled by those who sought to bury it. Her resilience was forged in the fire of adversity, her spirit tempered by loss and the relentless pursuit of justice. This outcome is a testament to the fact that even in the darkest times, the fight for what is right, for truth to prevail, is a fight worth waging. It leaves an indelible mark, a quiet understanding that healing doesn't erase the past, but allows one to move forward, stronger and more determined than before. The light drains from the sky, leaving the valley cloaked in a soft, cool gray. Aisha remains seated, the stone still warm in her hand. A profound weariness settles over her shoulders, heavier than any physical burden. The immediate, sharp edges of emotion are dulling, leaving a vast, empty space within. There is no triumphant feeling, only a quiet exhaustion that permeates her bones. The air grows colder, carrying the scent of approaching night. She feels a hollow ache where hope used to reside, replaced by the stark reality of loss that no resolution can truly fill. Justice feels less like vindication and more like a somber finality. A lone bird calls in the distance, its sound melancholic. She slowly unfolds her fingers, looking at the stone, its surface catching the faint residual light. It seems small and insignificant now, holding the weight of a life and a struggle. She doesn't feel despair, not exactly, but a pervasive, low-grade sadness that hums beneath her skin. It is the feeling of the journey ending, leaving her standing alone in the quiet aftermath. She places the stone gently on the wall beside her, a tiny offering to the fading light. The path before her is clear now, but stretches out into an uncertain darkness.